Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to day 8 of Earth University. Back at the Churchville Nature Center. Trying to probably be a little bit shorter of a video today, as it is later in the day and the sun is starting to go down already, but I wanted to get a quick session in and talk about a topic. So let me just jump into what I got going on Facebook. So I had some clarity last night in my dream state, which I talk about in my first post that I posted today, which I've said all along now for the last year or so that I had the picture pretty much, I could see it, but there was some puzzle pieces missing to bring that picture into focus and make it clearer. One thing that I often don't remember is my dreams. But last night I had a very vivid dream that I woke up and remembered who was in it and what happened in it. And it basically clicked the final piece that I needed to piece together everything and have it make total sense. I always believed the stuff, but I was missing some of that connective tissue, if you will, to link it all together, which I got. So that painting was called Beneath the Surface. It was a painting I did while I was staying at the hotel. I highly encourage people to read that post and the one that follows, which is called Time to Rise, which is a painting of 3 phoenixes that are rising. So I give my interpretation and tell a story with each of those. But like I said, I have the pictures become clear. I have the details that I had been lacking to have it make more sense. It's crazy. It was a lot to process. I think I wasn't quite ready to know the full truth yet, but over the last week I got there, so it was time for me to get the final puzzle pieces and start to, I know exactly what I'm supposed to do and be working on that this week. So yeah, part of the reason too that I switch up the time and locations where I do these videos is I talk a lot about recognizing patterns and other people's behavior. So I just never realized how many people were constantly tracking my patterns and what I was doing and using that to stop me from rising or of succeeding and doing the things that I had planned. Everybody, my whole life was trying to disrupt my flow and my patterns. So in order to not become predictable, the last 2 days I had the intuition not to come out here and do them. So I switched it up, the time and location. But it's beautiful out here. It's really helped me a lot, spending time listening to the birds and being by the water. So I wanted to make it a point to get out here today. So I talked to my daughter a little bit earlier and then came right out here after. But yeah, I guess I'm really going to try to stop talking as much on the videos about this past stuff. And it all ties in one way or another to my story, the lessons that I teach, or lessons that I saw firsthand and experienced in one way or another. But I would like to focus more on showing how this stuff, how easily we get tricked and fooled, and how history repeats itself, and how it's still happening today, and what we can do, and how we need to change some things moving forward in order to prevent a world where this stuff still just is allowed to go on without being checked, and then us be surprised when we continuously find out the same stuff happens over and over again. But like I said before, we act like it's these one-off incidents, like it's never happened before. So I want to talk about like scandals and legacy, how people that the society, culture, for a very long time, 60, 70 years for these people, they had these public images that painted them in this amazing light, that they were these great figures to be looked up to. And then how, when the truth came out of who they are, we realized that it was all a show and all just a lie the entire time. So the first guy that I want to talk about may not be as well known as the others, but he's a figure from England. He was an extremely popular radio DJ and like BBC personality, Jimmy Savile, who was born in 1926, died in 2011. So this guy spent 84 years and got away with, he died still being viewed as basically a great human being that people should look up to. So The Guardian, which is I guess a newspaper in England, described him to be a prodigious philanthropist. He was well known for his charitable work. The Stoke Mandeville Hospital was, I guess, something he was very involved in. I guess he donated a lot of money, maybe his time, to that hospital and the patients there. Not exactly sure the extent of it, but obviously enough to get written up about his charitable work. So in 1990 he was knighted in England. So That's like a high honor there. He passed away 2011, and then in 2012 the floodgates opened and all these accusations, all these accusers came forth. It turns out that he was just a monster, just a horrific predator, both child and women. So in all of this coming out, other public officials and the story of the cover-up also came out. So it's this guy that we put on a pedestal, or, you know, over in England, he was put on a pedestal. For what reason, I will never understand why people prop these figures up. I guess likely because they're doing the same types of things, or he has something on them that he can use to expose them. So, like I talked about yesterday, self-preservation. But anyway, yeah, a lot of people involved in the scandal and cover-up. That all got exposed. So here's a guy, after he died, his legacy totally shifted. How he'll be remembered, forever altered. And, you know, I've talked P. Diddy and Epstein, but they're just prominent figures who are well known. And like Epstein, in a lot of cases, like, people didn't really know much about him. He wasn't in the spotlight. The P. Diddy stuff is just, I don't think it's any surprise at this point, or it shouldn't be, how satanic and diabolical the music industry and Hollywood is. If you don't know, maybe that's a good topic for a video this week. But yeah, here's a guy, another country, good example of the same thing, that if you were to make those allegations while he was living with the reputation that he had, just the blind loyalty, and because people watched him on the TV and on radio, they listened to him, they confused who somebody pretends to be with who they really are. They think that they know this man. People are very good at disguising who they are. That's why it's so important to start paying attention, being aware, understanding what's healthy and what's unhealthy ways of handling things. Who can regulate their emotions and who can't. It's just the pattern recognition, understanding who's actually trying to have influence over the decisions you make. When you start paying attention, what used to be you just didn't really piece things together, you know? You didn't see that there is actually everything's connected and there's patterns. If you're setting boundaries and people are always trying to cross them and alter what you know is best for yourself. But I'm talking more public figures that we don't even know. We don't know these guys. Sadly, though, a lot of people who climb the ladder in whatever profession or business or TV, radio, whatever it may be, sports, it's not always on their own merit. It's through control, manipulation, and using other people to get there. So that's example number one, who you guys may not be as familiar with as the next two stories that I will talk about. So I'll do this one first. Obviously, I was raised in Philadelphia. Bill Cosby obviously was one of those figures from the city everybody was proud of. Obviously, everybody knows Bill Cosby's story at this point. It's just funny how people looked at Richard Pryor or George Carlin or other controversial comics who would actually speak their mind and say things that would upset people, because a lot of the stuff was actually true. They were making observations. That's what comedians do, good ones at least. Cosby branded himself as the clean comic, trying to put on the act that, you know, he was a role model and somebody to look up to. It was an extremely good marketing campaign that he had going for himself. Maybe he learned from Edward Bernays, who I talked about yesterday, on how to sell himself. But let's be clear, Bill Cosby was never the guy that we thought he was. He was never Cliff Huxtable. He was apparently America's dad. A lot of people grew up watching Cosby Show. He did all the right things and said all the right things when the cameras were rolling. But we clearly know what he was doing when they weren't. I'm more concerned what people do when nobody's watching. To me, that's a much better measure of who somebody is. So, yeah, 2014 was when those allegations came out with Cosby. He was born 1937, so he was in his 70s. If you would have told anybody, apparently it was like an open secret. There were people who knew, also people who covered for him. But trying to make that claim that Bill Cosby was somehow a bad guy in the early 2000s would have made you the bad guy, because everybody just buys it and then it's the mob mentality against anybody who was a victim of these people. So, the final one that I wanted to talk about, this one even more so than Cosby, is one that I have a personal connection with and story about. So, obviously, I talked about going to Penn State before. Joe Paterno, was coach for 45 years, was an absolute institution in himself. And then he had his assistant coach, Jerry Sandusky, defensive coordinator, who was there for like 30 years, 69 to 99. Once again, the guy who put on a good show, started the Second Mile charity up in State College, helping kids, and obviously we know what he ended up using that. It reminds me a little bit of the Devil in a White City, where these predators use, they're opportunists, they use charities or events or whatever to go hunting. They have great cover stories and public images that nobody would suspect. He was a two-time assistant coach of the year, recognized on a national scale. But yeah, once again, 2012, everything changed. An entire university was put under scrutiny. And rightfully so, I will add. Joe Paterno, entire legacy changed. It ended up killing him. He died very soon after this all came out. So I was working my first job after college, which I'll go into more detail about at a later time because it is relevant. But I was a commercial appraiser. I just so happened to be appraising a Christmas tree farm about an hour away from State College when all this stuff came out. I ended up, there was an old friend of mine from college who still lived in State College, so I went and met her for dinner and some drinks, and went back to State College for the first time in a long time, and it was a completely different environment. This was in the absolute height of the scandal and the controversy. There was national TV vans on Old Main's lawn. They were interviewing people about their opinions and everybody giving their take on it. And then Penn State became like a laughing stock and a punchline in jokes. Let's be clear, like, I'm not saying every college has somebody like Sandusky, he was a monster, but as I've tried to relay, This can happen anywhere with any group. People are all trying to cover things up and sweep things under the rug because they're doing the wrong things too, and they don't want to get pulled down with this other person, so they all become tied together. They become a very dangerous thing when you have people willing to cover up things such as this. So there's a lot of debate that was going on with the blue and white faithful, who basically viewed Joe Paterno as God himself, because the man coached football and said all the right things, and I tend to agree. Like, Joe Paterno molded a lot of men probably to be better men. He probably left a positive impact on a lot of people. I can't say for sure if he knew or he didn't know. Outwardly, my take was he was involved in every aspect of the football program for 45 years. This guy was working with them for 30 years. My guess is that he at least had some intuitive nudges that made him think something was off about Jerry Sandusky. Did he absolutely 100% know? I can't say. But I know how the universe works, and I'm pretty sure if he didn't know, the universe was trying to get his attention. But probably, like I said, because fear of the truth, and somehow fear of it tarnishing his legacy, he didn't want to explore it more. He would rather be blind to it than expose it and possibly get taken down with it. I find that, so it might take really, like, with it all, has always been like, my gut says he probably knew. Deep down, he probably knew. Doesn't really matter. The point is, he should have known. There's no excuse that he didn't. You can't be that close to somebody for that long without having some feelings about something being off. I've had those feelings my whole life. For a long time, I ignored them too. But I'm not condoning my mistakes. I'm just basically saying that everybody gets these nudges, and think that if Paterno would have not been short-sighted and actually wanted to explore his intuition that he was receiving, that something was off about him, I don't know, I would have applauded the man even more. If he had a part in exposing Sandusky for this, like, I don't view Joe Paterno any differently. I would revere him more for doing something like that. But as we all know, he didn't do that, and basically 45 years of a legacy and the scandal to end it all. He died literally in a firestorm. The thing that I had taken issue with when talking about the subject, which clearly made so many people uncomfortable that they didn't even want to talk about it, but the certainty that people had, the blind faith that Joe Paterno would never in a million years have known and allowed it to happen. That to me is a strange amount of certainty to have in another person that you don't actually really know. People are complicated. Situations are complicated. So often people just react or don't really put too much thought into the way that they judge people or celebrate people. I had people for pretty much the entire marriage, behind the scenes, all the people around me were painting the story and telling. I mean, it was defamation of character for nearly 10 years. I never understood why people viewed me or treated me a certain way. I was nice to everybody. I didn't do anything wrong, but because the money and the donating, the charitable, they are social, involved in everything. Yeah, they're involved in a lot of things that you don't know they're involved in as well. I like teaching and I like coming on and talking. It's got me out of my comfort zone. I'm proud of myself that I've been consistent with it and have grown to really be comfortable doing it. I enjoy writing. I enjoy painting. The sun's going down quick, so I'm going to wrap it up soon, but specifically the painting, I spent a lot of time over like a 6-month span painting one thing after the next. All these people around me, I never got one. All the people that are involved that were supposed to be friends or family, like not one, oh, I like that one, that's good. Nobody gave me any reaction. They acted like I had zero talent when it came to this stuff. Nobody ever complimented me on my creativity. Everybody was basically telling me I was wasting my time painting these things. I could never make money off of them, and it was a waste of time. You know, I talk a lot about what people are doing when nobody's watching. It's part of the story I'm telling. When nobody was watching, I was creating stuff, creating things, painting. All this stuff I'm sharing, it happened in a very short period of time. I didn't do anything else. I had no other life. I was always working on building the nonprofit, painting, or watching my daughter. I have no groups or friends to conspire with. I've been the same person day in and day out that I've always claimed to be, and that I'm trying to show, lead by example, and stand up to this stuff. It's gonna be a lot of people who, just like when they heard about Cosby or the other scandals, just act like this came out of nowhere. They can't imagine this nice man. My story is going to be filled with successful people who led a lot of people over the course of decades, figures that span all ages, older people who already achieved great success riding off of the coattails and doing these things to basically steal other people's destinies and become rich and successful off of them. Then you're going to have the people who couldn't do it on their own. They're younger and driven by money, driven by greed, just like the older people were before them, willing to do anything to advance their own self-interest. But how you see all of these people is going to be totally different than how most have viewed them for a very long time. Then on the flip side, you have a guy who apparently everybody had, because I go against the grain and then not a yes man. I don't say the things that people want me to say to them to make them feel better. This raw, authentic truth that I try to give people in order so that they can actually learn about themselves and grow. But that's easily painted me as the villain or the bad guy for a long time, really without my knowledge for most of my life. I didn't have any idea that people felt a certain way about me. But I'm at peace with the fact that that happened. But I'm really not interested, because I never judged anybody like that. I've tried to stress time and time again how I formulate my own opinions of people based on my observations and personal time I spend with them interacting before, and I give it a lot of time. I don't jump to any conclusion after meeting somebody for 5 minutes. You're doing yourself and them a disservice if you do that. You can't judge a book by its cover. There's a reason that saying exists. I'm the book. Everybody wanted to judge by the cover. Everybody, for some reason, think I had some privileged, blessed existence where things were just handed to me all the time. When in reality, I've been the hardest working guy that seemingly never went anywhere, while everybody else around me seemed to advance and benefit. My entire life, like, good things were always happening to everybody else. People made me feel like there's something wrong with me. But it wasn't what's wrong with me. It's what's wrong with everybody surrounding me and how I let them doubt myself. Never again will I surround myself with anybody who even attempts to plant a seed of doubt in my mind. These people will never learn. Some of them will come begging and pleading with their crocodile tears. They honestly will think, after all this, after everything that I have been able to piece together and solve on my own with no help and an entire army that I'm up against, all trying to share the same purpose and narrative to keep me from figuring this stuff out. They think because at one point I cared about them or loved them that they're going to be able to pull one over on me still. That I'm just going to forget. That I'm not going to be able to see through them. So, for those people who are watching, I would think twice about coming and trying to talk to me if you don't mean 100% what you're saying. If you're not feeling that thing 100% in your heart, you're gonna make it worse on yourself. But to be clear, it's gonna be time for me to move on. I forgive you all, but at this point, I don't owe any of you anything. So, you can either come to terms with that and understand it, or you can make the mistake and try to argue with me and fight. The end result's going to be the same. Maybe it's time to learn how to let go, how to process your emotions, and if you truly care about me, it's that time that you're gonna have to actually do what's best for me for a change, which is let me go live my life. So, pretty fitting that the sun is literally almost going down under the trees as I wrap up. Like I said, there's going to be plenty more content that comes. Telling the full story as things unfold in the background, but the time is approaching. The end is near. Keep doubting me. Keep trying to play with my energy and mess with my mind. I think I've pretty much mastered how to transmute and alchemize. I have stronger gifts than any of the things that you guys think that you possess. The things you probably don't even understand the damage you're doing. But I don't know, you're probably going to start feeling some of it when it comes back at you. Same stuff that you were sending at other people, myself included. Rightfully so. I hate a hypocrite. Nothing worse. Somebody who will do something to somebody else and then cry like a little baby when it's done to them. Funny thing is, I didn't even do anything. It's just the same. It's just a thing that you did that is coming back in your direction. So you can point blame or say that I'm cruel or mean all you want, but I'm not the one that did the spell. Wished harm upon other people. That's what you did. So when that ultimately is what you experience, that's meant to be a lesson. Not to do something to somebody else that you don't want done to yourself. So, yeah, I hope you guys, for once, truly comprehend what I say and not still think you somehow are going to weasel your way out of it. Just like Sandusky and Cosby, you're going to get your entire reputation, image, and legacy flipped. It's going to happen soon. So that's my prophetic vision for the day. Now we'll just wait and see it play out. Love you all. Got a lot more stuff coming, but I'll see you guys tomorrow at Earth University. Have a good one.